So another week, another React video. This time, Flux Academy.
So what are we expecting?
Entire graphic design degree in 12 months. Sounds about right, to be honest.
Maybe one semester tops.
You can cover all the concepts in 12 minutes, but the difficult part is putting it to work.
Yeah, it's being good. Having taste.
Yeah, do you feel like having taste is a shortcut to success as a designer?
It's like 30% taste, and then 70% is like you trying like way too hard. It's like an insecurity that makes you try really hard to make like a graphic look good. I feel like in all perfectionism in general, it's like an insecurity because you need it to be perfect.
Okay, good take. I kind of feel like the taste is a higher percentage, maybe 50-50. Yeah, you can try your ass off, and if you don't have good taste, your designs are gonna look like Will Patterson.
Oh man, shots are already fired. Okay.
I mean, I don't know. It's just like it's crucial. It's crucial, and for everything, not just graphic design. Anything where you're being creative.
All I'm saying is I know people with really good taste who are just not implementing it. They have it inside, but it's not.
You need the work ethic as well.
You have to put it out. That's half the battle.
All right, let's get into it.
In this video, I'm going to share with you exactly what I learned in 4 years of fancy design school. I'll also share with you what they didn't tell me about design in the real world, so I can save you 4 years of your life and $100,000 or more in student debt.
Yeah.
Right? How much student? I feel like I have over like almost 30K student debt.
Yeah, I had
Even
almost
with
40. Yeah, a lot of financial aid, a lot of scholarship. I'm still paying it. I was expecting Biden to, here we are.
Snoozing.
Yeah, it's like, psych, it's back.
The first thing they teach you at design school is that you are important and designers are important. Now, this is obvious. You just enrolled to become a designer and they want to make you feel good. But the basic premise of this is this. Designers actually create the culture, everything around us, from the restaurants to the signage that we're seeing, to the apps and website that we're using on a daily basis, was designed by designers just like you.
So that's like a really self-important take.
It is. Like, I don't think it's not important, right? The examples he's showing here, New York City subway.
I love New York. Everyone loves that. Starbucks.
These designs are all iconic, but do they make the culture?
In my design school, there was a day where my teacher was like, you need to know that you're like not that important.
Yeah.
He's like, I've been in a room with like doctors, scientists. Like, there's no risks to design. If you mess it up, it's not like anything.
The world keeps going. Although I guess like the one thing to hit this point is that I feel like in modern day, it's almost more so cultural based. If we look at music, for example, someone like Travis Scott, his psychedelic sound pioneered that, and like that's what is the culture, and he is the culture. But where would he be without the aesthetics?
Right. I see
So
what
it's
you're
like
saying.
it's like the branding and packaging of him as a product is like more important now than it was for artists back then.
Yeah, because I think a lot of the good design isn't like creating something relatively new, so to speak, but it's giving people something to put their emotions onto and like latch onto.
It's like the memory aspect of it. This is inflated, but there's some truth to it. It's like not important, but it's kind of like the assistance.
Yeah.
A tremendous impact about the visual culture that we live in, and even how we behave. So if you think about, designs like Tinder, the behavior actually changes culture. So you have, as a designer, the potential to impact millions of others with the work that you are doing. And this is really important. And the reason that they're telling you this is so that you feel responsible when you're working with companies, no matter if they are companies like Facebook or Instagram that perhaps cause addiction and different kinds of behaviors, to companies maybe selling guns or alcohol or stuff like that. They want you to understand that you have a responsibility for the culture that you are creating in the world.
Good takes. He's thought about this. He's not just pulling this out of thin air.
I think it is important to be conscious of your responsibility as a designer. We have to choose our own clients, right? It's tough to make certain calls. The more money and more budget a project has, like the worse it is.
Yeah, that like the first thing that comes to my mind is the Peloton project we worked on.
And it killed kids.
Like a week after we started it, it came out that like 2 kids got crushed under the Peloton, and it was like a design flaw that they were cutting costs.
Yeah, it's like imagine designing for Boeing, like.
Yeah, it's like you don't know what is necessarily good or bad. Like obviously cigarettes are bad, we would turn down that, but you can't just know looking at them, oh, this is a good company versus a bad company. It takes a lot of effort to like tell that, I think.
Yeah.
Now, the second thing that they teach you is everything is a message. So before they even dive down into software and colors and layouts and stuff like that, they want to teach you how to tell a story and how to send a message. Because you think about this way, when you're picking up your clothes, you're going, down the streets, you pick out your shoes and your shirt or whatever, that tells a story. Now, you can't not choose them. You have to choose something when you're going, and that tells a story. Even if you go out naked, of course, that also tells a story about who you are. So everything is a message, and you need to understand how to control that message, because every design, whatever image, type, color, layout that you'll use, that's going to send a message. So they want to teach you how to control the message. So the way that they do this in design school is they start off very, very simple. They're saying, okay, I want you to tell this story or send this message using an image, and not even a normal image like a black and white image. They want to clean everything up just to make sure that you know how to tell it with simple tools. And then, so let's start with a black and white image, then maybe a color image, and then maybe add type or other elements on top of it. So you start really simple, because design can be overwhelming. You have so many elements, and that can, be either telling a different story, or you don't know how to control these elements yet. So you start off really simple, again, with black and white images, and slowly, as you learn how to develop and tell stories and control the message, you add more elements on top.
Yeah, I think this is really true. Again, a great take by this guy. This reminds me of one of the projects we had our students do. Where
I was about to say that too.
The premise of it is you have to create 4 movie posters that are different genres, like comedy, drama, rom-com. The only thing you're able to use is like shapes and
Basic
colors.
shapes, yeah.
Like stripping it down to the fundamentals, like what emotions are you able to elicit with just using those moving parts. And I feel like that's like an invaluable lesson for a beginner.
Horror, you think more spiky, scary, sharp, maybe
Black and
red. Things like that are like in the zeitgeist of everyone's mind. You're calling on mutual understanding, and you have to kind of be in the culture to understand those cues to then pull them out of the work.
Now, the next thing that you learn is that type is at the heart of design. And if you think about this, if there is no typography on the design, then it's probably not a design. Maybe it's a piece of art or an illustration or something, but every design that needs to communicate something, right? Something functional or to communicate some kind of a message has to communicate it using type, using words.
I don't know about that. I feel like words are not the only thing that is a communication tool. Design is just visual communication ultimately.
Yeah, but I guess he's distinguishing like art versus design. I guess typography is a kind of a dead giveaway, but
because like it's concrete, like what it's communicating versus like interpretational.
There's tons of posters that are like very graphic driven. Like if you think even like Milton Glazer's like Bob Dylan poster, it still says like Dylan at the bottom. But if that wasn't there, you would think that's an illustration.
I mean, that's a fair way to draw the line. For me, it's more so its use case. Art, it needs to exist without function to me. I feel like once you like are using it as a tool in some form, it becomes design.
Right, so like if a stop sign didn't say stop, but the design of the octagon and the red,
it's still a functional
design.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I see it.
And so understanding how to control and manipulate typography is very, very important. It has both the functional side of things, right? Because you need people to read it and understand. So it needs to be functional, but it also has an emotional. So the type of fonts that you choose and how you set them and the sizes and the colors and everything also tells an emotional story. And also, if you think about this, type is like a visual element. So it can be part of the visual and the design that you're doing. So understanding, if you want to be a good designer, you have to study typography and you have to spend a lot of time understanding it and learning how to manipulate it properly.
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, type is, I feel like of all design, type is the hardest thing to master.
Yeah. When we get a student application for an internship, I think that the first thing you could tell if someone has a level that we would look into hiring is their typography skills. It's like the first thing you notice.
Yeah, even on the resume, you can tell within 2 seconds whether or not someone understands layout, baseline grid, rules, and everything. So.
And it's like, it's not even that it's so hard to make good type. I feel like the beginner mistake is often doing way too much. No one's going to sit there and want to read a ton of information, and no one's going to want to parse through like different levels of information unless it's useful to them.
They don't want to read already.
Yeah, so, you don't want to read.
So
Who
it's
reads?
like, what? Yeah, exactly.
Now, the next thing that they teach you is that a great tool for arranging typography and the layouts on your page or whatever it is that you're designing is a grid. Grid is a wonderful tool to use. Now, basically, what grids are just some kind of guides for columns and rows to help you arrange the information, whether that's type or images that you have on your format, just to make sure that everything is aligned to each other, and that there is some kind of a rationale to the spacing between elements. Because when you have alignment and logical spacing, that creates organization. And when things are messy, they don't look organized, it creates kind of a sense of distress. And so when things are organized, it's much easier to consume the content, understand it, and it looks, of course, better and more trustworthy. And as I said, how to organize information. Sometimes, in digital product, they call it also user experience, right? We need to be able to consume this. So understanding how to organize the information on the format creates good user experience and allows people to, consume the content properly.
Grids, they have their time, they have their place. I feel like now that so much design is Instagram ad, one-offs, the grid isn't as important as I think it used to be a pillar, and now it's like a tool.
I think it's a pillar in the sense that you need to know how to design in a grid in order to break it.
Like, I feel like everyone has a grid in their heart. If you have something, just line up one other thing to it, and then people will assume, oh, this is intentional.
Like you said, it's really useful. I think like the things he's showing here,
Right.
Book design, it's extremely important. Web design, it's very important. At the same time, I feel like the grid kind of destroyed web design in a way where like now everything looks the same. And yeah, it's organized, but it's like organized in the same exact way.
Yeah.
And that's because we're trying to like make it easier for people to buy products by like navigating in a way that's
scientifically this click, if you put this right here, if you make it blue, they'll click it 2% more.
I just think as a designer, you need to know it. You need to know it.
There's no way you need to know grid, but then don't let the grid control you. Like if you want to break the grid, just break the grid. You
get the opportunity to make a poster and then you end up like using a strict grid. It's like, what are you, fucking square? Go get a little crazy with it,
You don't need a grid.
The next thing is you don't want to become a slave to software. So yes, while they are teaching you design software in design college, they actually don't do this on day one, and they want to make sure that while you're learning it, you're not just running straight into the software, because the software is kind of is limiting, right? What you can do with the software is limited to the features and the workflows and so forth. So what they're trying to encourage you to do, and I still do this to this day, is to first think, and using something like a sketchbook or paper and pen and paper that really allows you to quickly limitlessly just throw down your ideas without boundaries. You want to do that first, and then you want to go to the software to implement your ideas. So think first. Again, I always have a sketchbook next to me. I always get started on whatever the project is just by sketching my ideas, and it's got nothing to do with if you know how to draw or not. You simply sketch out ideas, and then you go to the computer to implement and refine them.
You got to bust out your Pilot parallel pens, sketch some calligraphy. He's got a point, though. A lot of times people dive right into Illustrator or a different program, and then their work looks like they're just like opening the tool for the first time.
I struggle with this one actually because I feel like there's pros and cons to both approaches. I definitely don't use my sketchbook as much as I did when I was a student. I'm trying to think of what the reason is. Yes, the programs are limiting, but I feel like there's an interest for me in figuring out how to like break those programs or use them in a way that they're not supposed to be used. Hot take. I think the ideas that you can come up with in a sketchbook are ideas that have already been done. If you open the sketchbook of a graphic designer, a lot of it's gonna feel the same, in my opinion. What you're able to do can be augmented by tools beyond what you can just draw with a pen.
So I'll disagree like to a sense on that. I still sketch pretty frequently. I have really quick ideas where I'll just like, it'll look like crap. You won't even be able to recognize what I'm sketching, but it's like 15 ideas really quick, bang them out. And then I'll not even look at that and go into the computer. There's always those first few ideas. It's like a voice in your head, and until you address it, it won't leave you alone. So sometimes I just draw it, get
out of the way.
Yeah,
I do that too. Typically when I transfer paper to digital, I already know beforehand, before I even start, where I'm like, I'm gonna draw specifically for this project. I want it to look like that. If I feel like it's gonna be a font-based design, I'm just gonna start on the computer.
With the font. Yeah, that makes sense.
Anyway, there's validity to what he's saying, especially for students, I think.
Yeah, if you're a student, sketch.
The next thing that they teach you is that you gotta learn your history, right?
No.
History, burn it down. We don't need no books.
I think it'll aid you if you're trying to become a certain type of designer. These days, looking at references, like you don't need to know where it came from.
I feel like that goes into like postmodernism in general. Everything is recycled, and everything you see has been referenced so many times already, so you don't know the genesis of anything. The
main use case for knowing your history is to sell your work. I think like being able to have the talking points, this is eliciting like a Art Nouveau kind of aesthetic. Not that that would ever happen these days, but in 10 years when that's trendy.
Oh, I've thought so hard about this. Like, it's deep, but it's always post-rationalized.
The thing that designers never want to say out loud is that every decision is post-rationalized.
Yeah,
you
'cause
just
it's
do
a
what
vibe.
you feel in your gut.
Yeah, the grit of your heart.
Yeah, you're a vibe curator at the end of the day. That's it. I wouldn't say this is a pillar, in my opinion.
Because the truth is that every new idea or a visual idea that you see today is probably a remix of things that were already created, and they're rearranged in a new kind of like format to look new and innovative. So if you want to be a good DJ, a good remixer, you need to have a large kind of like database of knowing what you need to remix. And there are so many great things in the history of art, from things back in the day like Egyptian art or Peruvian art or Chinese art, that you can take away from, into also the history of graphic design, right from the beginning of advertisement to all kinds of art movements like Art Nouveau, constructivism, and a lot of things that were already happening. So the more you learn what already happened, the more you have ideas on how you can use that, put a new twist on it, and come up with something new and innovative.
I like that he highlighted Egyptian hieroglyphics. It's like, oh, I don't need to know the context of this. I just need to see it in front of my face and feel it in my gut. Like, oh,
Yeah.
this feels right for the project.
Yeah, exactly. Just look out the window.
The next thing is that whatever you design, if it's books or websites, it's usually a story. And what I mean by that is, if you think about kind of like a film, it's slide by slide, right? There is a frame and then another frame and then another frame, and that's how the story develops. And if you think about a book, you're like flipping a book. So you have the cover, and then you have chapter 1, and then you slide to chapter 2. And if you think about a website, then you have the hero section, and you scroll to the first section and the third section. So all of these things are a story, and you need to learn how to think about them as a story. And a story has a beginning, a middle, and an end. So you need to learn to think about your designs as stories that has beginning, middle, and an end.
We're humans. I feel like everything is kind of a story. You could say like a dinner is a story. You could say like a walk to the park is a story. Like, it's just how much do you want people to go for the journey on the ride. It's important if you want to create that like memorable like hook to like tell a story, and then people will come back for more.
Basically, this point is just saying create a standard of expectation for like how people consume content. And while that is important 90% of the time, if you are trying to make impact, it would be almost more important to break that.
If you think about movies like Memento, same thing, starts in the middle.
Yeah.
So it's like,
and
it's still
it
a
stands
story.
out for that. It's like if people forget the name of Memento and they're like, oh, what's that movie that's out of order?
I'm just saying that's still a story, because we're human. That, like, all we understand is a story. That's why we believe in conspiracy. Everything is connected. You're making the connections, and then everything, boom.
In my opinion, that one was a nothing burger.
Yeah. It's kind of just like, we're human beings.
Yeah.
But you should understand that. If you don't, like, everyone should already know that.
The last thing, the eighth thing, is that you want to understand that constraints are your friends. We love to complain about the fact that there's not enough money, there's not enough time, but I don't have access to this or that. But you have to understand that a lot of times innovation comes from the fact that you don't have enough money or time, so you need to invent something new.
I really like this guy's video so far. I feel like that's a great point.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with modern design, is that we have too many tools.
Agreed. I think like restraints are always important. It kind of back to what I was saying before about the whole digital software thing. Like, he was complaining about the constraints in that context, but those constraints are what kind of forces you to expand beyond what the tools allow you to do.
Right.
Like, without those constraints, then you would probably find another tool that like gets to exactly what you have in your mind easier, rather than experimenting and getting somewhere unexpected.
Yeah, it's like, how close could I get to this look using a tool that is absolutely not designed for that? And then you'll create something new.
I just want to kind of share just like one example from like the punk scene, where these people didn't have any money to do proper design. So they just took papers, they kind of scraped things around, duct taped them, had kind of like cutting out different typography or handmade stuff, and that literally created a new style, a new visual style that was based not because they thought it was pretty or functional. It's just that they had a limitation. All they had was a Xerox machine. They didn't have computers. They didn't have anything else.
Punk's a psyop.
They had money.
CIA funded.
Sex Pistols, Vivian Westwood money.
And that literally created a new visual style because they were limited, and you can try to come up with new ideas based on limitation. We always have limitation. Real world design always have limitation, and you need to treat them as kind of like triggers for your innovations.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately that's another good point. I remember a project I had to do in school was like create typography with objects and photograph them into a poster, where the entire poster is just the photograph of the type. It forces you to create something you would have never made on the computer. So these days, like, it's kind of crazy how artificial now, like, we're trying to simulate the punk look.
That's what I was
It's like, oh, I get like a Photoshop like halftone filter.
Yeah, like a high-tech solution to a low-tech aesthetic is a little strange.
Now I want to talk about a few of the things that they never told me in design school, and I wish they would tell me in design school. The first one is that design is actually working with other people. We, as designers, a lot of time we love to sit on our computers and tinker around, and we're watching tutorials, and we like to do the design on our own. But in real life, no design is created by a single person. You always have a client, a company, an organization. You always have to take into consideration different constraints and work with other people. Working with other people meaning getting feedback, communicating your thoughts, and negotiating your decisions. And that is something that you often don't learn in design school, but this is so important. This is why a lot of people at the end of the day may be quitting because they don't know how to work with their clients, or some people are very successful because they do know how to work with clients, even if they're not the most talented people in the world.
I think we should send this video to Will Patterson. No, this is exactly what I was thinking when he was talking about his day, and I was like, he's missing like the hardest part of design is like the sales part, where you have to deal with really unique personalities and try to get them to believe in your vision.
It's interesting that he includes a client in like working with others. Because at first I thought he meant just like a team.
Right.
But it's true. Like we said in the interview, it's like a dance that you have to perform with the client. And some of them, they're very academic, and we have to just put on our button-up shirt,
pull out our history
talk with a British accent. Others are just friends, and we can shoot the shit with them.
The relationship to the client is more impactful on the outcome of the work than the amount of time we put into it. It's like, how much do they trust us? How free do we feel to pitch them cool, weird, wacky ideas? If you don't have that, it becomes all about just guessing what they're trying to think in their head, what they want, and like just trying to please someone, and that never works out.
The next thing is that good design does not always win. This is really tough, but today in the age of A/B testing, where we can really test things out, sometimes what looks to us like a really crappy design actually performs better.
Damn, how does he know everything?
It's almost like he actually does graphic design.
I mean, this is better than my education for 4 years.
This is very, this is very unfortunate sometimes, and it creates, pain for us as designers. But you have to understand that there's always kind of like a balance between what we want to do and what we think looks good and what performs well. And there's always kind of like a tension there. And again, it's our part as designers when working with other people to explain why we think something should be this way or that way, and manage this trade-off.
Yeah, he's right. Again.
Just agree video?
Yeah, damn, like, come on.
You're dumb. We don't like you. No.
I don't like your glasses.
You have to put yourself in the mind of the audience sometimes. Like, a lot of times I design for myself as if I'm the audience. And you really have to understand people come with their own box of like associations and what things mean, and you have to kind of tailor it to certain people's like beliefs. And if you want to speak to someone, you have to like really understand them. And I feel like that's why good design sometimes just like either goes over people's head or is too dense for them to even want to engage with. It's tough.
That's interesting. I feel like it is a really important thing for designers to be empathetic.
Yeah.
You need to understand why you spent an entire month working on a blue design, and then the person's just like, I don't like
blue. Yeah. But sometimes you do have to like shove things down people's throats in a way where you could make the ugliest, worst logo like the most iconic with enough money and marketing behind it. So yeah, you can muscle in anything into the zeitgeist.
How many times have we presented something where we like take the chosen design that we don't like and then put it next to like a bunch of shitty things that we see and be like, see? Like, it blends right in. Yeah, blends right into all the crap.
You want to look like this? Sometimes you got to put on your Don Draper suit and like bring some gift cigars and schmooze some people, get a little...
Get some poo on your nose.
Yeah, you gotta like wine and dine the client. You gotta show them like, oh, like we're friends. You could trust me.
The next thing they never taught me in design school is that you can make money as a designer. I left design school thinking, okay, I'm gonna be either freelance a little bit or gonna work in an agency or something like that. But I never understood that as a designer, you can be an entrepreneur. You can work for companies and earn a lot of money. You can be a high value consultant, and you can literally make a great living as a designer. And this is super important. This can be a very, very great, rewarding, financially rewarding career.
Yeah, I think that's something we believed. That's why we started our own studio. Like we worked at agency for maybe 2 or 3 years and then started right away because we saw like, oh, we could do this. Like, this doesn't look so hard. We could do a client ourselves, and then we could actually. Like, it was surprising.
Yeah. The next thing is that design is always subjected to marketing and business. We always have to work within these things. And the designs, the briefs that we're working on always have either some business objectives or marketing objectives. And we have to understand, again, we're not living in a vacuum in a business. Design is not always the most important factor when making decisions about product or marketing or how something looks like. And so you have to, again, understand how to manage all of these requirements and trade-offs in working with other people.
I feel like that's true for everyone, especially in an agency context. But what's interesting to me is that different agencies value design in different levels. In some agencies, the marketing team is king. Designers are just like slaves, honestly, to them. It's like, oh, we got to change the entire strategy, so what you did doesn't make sense. Then there's other agencies where they work on the design first, and then the strategy team and marketing team have to like come up with a rationale to support the design.
Mm-hmm. The last thing is, design is changing all the time. And even when what I teach here on YouTube and what I learned on my design college, technology changes so fast, and the requirement and the platforms and the needs and the culture changes so fast that what we think of as design today and the role of designer is always changing. And so this is a never ending, you don't just go to college or take a course and that's it, you're over. This is a role with a lifelong learning.
Is he like reading my mind or something? Like, dude, that's like what we talked about in our interview.
Yeah, again, design is a very new profession, less than 100 years old. It's directly linked to the media we consume.
Yeah.
So, and that's always changing.
Yeah, the medium is the message, as the quote goes. If you're designing for iPhone, that's going to look totally different than if you're designing for Neuralink brainwave signals. The execution will really depend on how people are receiving this information. You should stay up to date with the apps, whatever's popular, what are people using. You should know how things function. You don't know how many times we've had to design posters in design school where, you got to have the big headline, get their attention, get them to come up and read the poster. And now everyone's looking down at their phones. No one's really looking at ads.
All right. I hope that was useful to you. Of course, this is just kind of like the tip of the iceberg, but I hope that it gives you some places where you understand that you need to deepen your knowledge, right? Whether this is storytelling or typography or other things that I've mentioned here. If you want to dive deeper, of course, watch other videos on our channel or check the resources below this video, and I will see you on the next video. Peace out.
All right.
Final thoughts?
It's boring to react to this, but he's so fucking right.
Yeah.
Even though I have a devil's advocate on some pointers he made, everything
is valid.
Everything is valid.
Yeah, he's smart. He seems like he's working in the industry or has worked in the industry. He's been exposed. He knows what he's talking about.
Notice he didn't say calligraphy. That was not one of the points in there. I enjoy reacting to it as well. Obviously, it's more fun if we can roast someone. So if any of you guys want to send us any of your projects, we'd be happy to take a look at them and rip them apart.
Yeah, we'll give you feedback. We'll be nice. Kevin will be mean. I'll be really nice. I won't say one bad thing about you. I swear to God. I will send it over. We'll talk about it. Comment. You could roast us in the comments because we couldn't roast today. So we need someone to get made fun of. I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Peace.